So I'm gay and polyamorous, and depending who's watching this, that might not mean much to you. But if you knew the people pleasing, self abandoning, pastor's daughter version of me, you would understand how important it is that I'm able to come here on the big bad internet and speak very openly and confidently about who I am. If you're new here, my name is La-Vonne. I am a confidence, communication, and public speaking coach for change makers and cycle breakers, helping you to get clear on your identity, your core message, and also on being able to speak that into the world. Whether that world is literally just your internal world or your family, or if you want to be on stages or screens or podcasts or courses or whatever you want to do. Right now, I'm coming to you direct from Masunte, Oaxaca, because I identify as a digital nomad and I love traveling. I'm actually traveling here with the salsa cumbia band that I sing with, and we're doing a couple of shows into the new year. And speaking of the new year, I wanted to come and talk to you about what it means to live authentically. You know, when the new year comes around, a lot of times people are thinking about what can I do differently. And even though personally I don't really count the new year until spring because we're still in winter, although I'm currently in a tropical environment, we're still in winter, we're still wintering. There is collectively this energy, okay, what seeds do I at least want to plant for this new period? And a lot of times people are thinking, how can I be more myself? I think if we think about the gym memberships that we want to do, or if we think about wanting to take up dance classes, or if we think about wanting to take up singing classes, or if we think about wanting to write more, if we think about wanting to do better in our jobs, it really comes down to how do I be more of the self that I want to be? And I would argue that the authentic self is a self that is really worth being. By the way, if you hear some background noise, don't worry about it. Like I said, I'm on the fly, but it felt really important for me to record this message and share it with you today. And I prepared some questions for myself to talk a little bit about this idea of how do you live authentically in 2025? How do you break free from people's expectations? How do you create a life of radical freedom, art, and purpose for yourself? The reason why I think I have something to share about this is recently I was actually on the phone with a cousin of mine and I was talking to her about some of the challenges I've been having living in Mexico. I've been slow traveling through Mexico for 4 years now. I do have a home base, but I move around quite a bit. And that home base also can change quite a bit. And I was talking to her about some of the challenges I've faced with coming out as queer, coming out as polyamorous, and the abandonment that happened when my family heard that. They completely abandoned me. And the emotional and practical challenges that I am adjusting to still years after. And she said something to me. She said, yeah, I get that. I get that you're feeling that challenge. But Sharice, you're living the most authentic version of yourself. And when she said that, I took a step back from what felt like, oh, yes, I've lost this, and I no longer live in Jamaica, and I no longer have this certain familiarity, and I no longer have these relationships. And I stepped into, she's right. Like, honestly, even in the midst of the challenges that I have, when I wake up in the morning, there is this deep sense of peace in my soul because I know that I am one with myself. And I remember sometime in my 20s, I used to play with this idea, is it worth having external peace if I'm having internal turmoil? Is it really worth it? If I had to choose, I would prefer challenging situations with people outside and being able to have those challenging situations by virtue of how I communicate, being able to say, hey, this is what I believe, this is what I stand for, this is what I don't stand for. And through that, have coherence within than feeling like I'm just going along with the group, everything's cool, everything's fine, but within I am not feeling aligned. And so we get to one of my first questions that I have for myself, because when I put these videos up, I set the idea, but then I write down some questions that's just going to help me guide the conversation. And the first question I have is, what does authenticity mean to me now? What does it mean to me now compared to when I was growing up? Authenticity means that when I wake up in the morning, I feel at peace with the decisions I've made. That's what it means to me. Authenticity means that I allow a certain flow of energy, regardless of if I completely understand what's going on. Authenticity means now to me, this is the big difference. Instead of just, I want to be loud and I want everybody to hear me and I want to be the most controversial person and it be okay. I think there was something like that when I was younger. Authenticity to me now more means that I want to be able to re-find what it means to be in alignment with my most natural self. And let me break that down for you, because I think sometimes, depending on how you identify, especially as queer people, especially as women, and that could be women of all sorts, I include everyone when I'm talking here, and I do believe men as well, so all of us, we exist in a society that has somehow disconnected us from what it means to really be in the more feminine flow of life, to understand this idea of trusting what is, to recognize that technically we don't really have to work and toil in this capitalistic structure if we don't want to. That nature itself says, hey, plant a seed, tend to it, do the work, but something beautiful will come from that. Fruits will grow from that. And so for me, authenticity is being able to understand the esoteric, the spiritual, the energetic, the emotional processes of sowing seeds and having those blossom and being able to return to that rhythm. So for me, authenticity is, how was I designed as this being and how can I maximize that design? I think a lot of self-awareness is important. I think curiosity is important. Being able to search psychology, spirituality, esoteric knowledge, hidden knowledge, sociology, anthropology. Being able to really think, how can I explore what it truly means to be human? And then, how can I apply my understanding of being human in a way that feels good to my soul? You know what's funny is I don't think there's one authentic version of you. I think there is a you that is responsive to the environments that you are in. And when I look back on times when I feel like I self-abandoned, meaning I did something for someone else that wasn't actually good for me, meaning that I just tried to please other people instead of really noting what mattered to me, I recognize that in that moment, that's what I needed. In that moment, that was my authentic response. But as knowledge grows, as intention to love myself grows, as my commitment to being well and to defining wellness for myself grows, then my definition and your definition of authenticity may change, and it may very well change in a situation. I want to bring up something that I found very interesting with living in Mexico. My personality in Spanish is different than my personality in English, which is different than my personality in Jamaica when I'm talking patois. And this isn't because I'm a fractured person as much as, one, there are limitations of my actual knowledge of the language in Spanish. So there are ways that I simply cannot relate in Spanish that I could in English. I'm fluent, I get by, I do business, I make love, I make friends, I sing in Spanish. So I really have a relatively advanced domination of the language. However, I don't have the historical context. I didn't grow up in Mexico. There are certain things that just fly over my head and always will. And so even when I moved here, there was this situation of having to encounter the authentic version of myself that was much more laid back, peaceful, absorbing, trusting, flowing intuitively than the version of me that I knew in English, which is going after goals and pushing myself hard and just doing everything like this type A woman. And so I find that very curious. So I'm curious for you to tell me, what does authenticity mean to you? And what would it mean for you to be your most authentic version? That could be the first place that you can start when you start thinking about how can I be more authentic, or how can I live more as myself in this new year. Okay, checking my other questions. You know, authenticity isn't always easy. Um, I mentioned that there were very real consequences when I chose to come out to my very conservative Christian family as a pansexual and polyamorous woman. And those consequences are something that I have had to nurture, deal with, process for, and still do. You know, what does life look like now that these people are no longer a part of my life? As much as there are parts of the relationships that were harmful to me, there are also parts that were beneficial. So what do I do now? Um, I think what's really important as you think about going forward in being more authentic, whether it is you're thinking about coming out, whether coming out as gay, coming out as spiritual, coming out as a content creator, coming out as whatever you are and want to present yourself as, I really do want you to take stock of what it could mean practically, not from a place of fear, but from a place of preparation. Because if I had done it differently, and I heard someone say this recently about their coming out in their polyamorous journey, where they would have made sure they were more resourced. I would have made sure that I was more resourced before I came out to my family. I would have still come out, but I would have made sure that my intimate relationships were more secure, that my friendships were more secure, that I perhaps had a little bit more security when it came to money, because my family and I were actually involved in business as well. And made sure that I had the space, right, to be able to hold myself and be held in the ways that I really needed if I were to do it differently. So when you're thinking about being more authentic this year, I really want you to consider, okay, what are some of the practical things that I might have to prepare for? And prepare for that. Prepare for that. Now, the next thing that I want you to think about is, how do you, once you've determined how you want to be more authentic, how do you communicate that to yourself first and foremost, to your immediate surroundings, your most intimate relationships, and to the world if you desire? Why do I start with yourself? Self-concept is the ground level, ground zero of any sort of transformation or manifestation. And in fact, what we are talking about here is manifesting a life that feels more aligned with you. I can say that I have manifested and continue to manifest a life that feels more aligned with me. Last night, I was in a cute little bar in this hippie town in Masunte, Oaxaca, playing with my band, watching people dance and enjoy themselves to salsa, to cumbia, to reggae, recognizing that I was part of that energy, creating that energy for these people. That for me is a part of my ideal life. And it's a long way from when my parents used to scold me from dancing to secular music as a teenager. And I used to hold myself back because naturally I'm a dancer, naturally I move, naturally I'm in celebration with reality itself. But the way that I grew up had me compliant and constrained. So I had that moment when I was on stage and I was like, wow, Cherise, like, you have moved from being this person who shut herself down, who shut people out, who would not express her sexuality or her sensuality, to being someone who stands in a sexy outfit with beautiful adornment, with a sleeve full of tattoos, which I absolutely adore my tattoos and I have more. With this energy, with this vibration, moving and flirting with reality and flirting with the audience. Like, that is amazing. And that's just one aspect of the life that I have created for myself. That does not have to be the life that you create for yourself. Your life could be, your authentic expression of life could be, which is also mine as well, living alone, taking time out every day to nurture your body, creating tinctures and medicines from herbs, this is another part of my life that I absolutely love, which is a far cry from my family in Jamaica telling me that may I work obia. For those of you who don't get that, considering that herbal work is witchcraft and so therefore bad, and it's something I shouldn't do and I should be afraid of, to actually being confident, negotiating nature and being one with nature and allowing nature to guide me in how these different plants can support me in whatever I'm doing. That's another part of my authentic life that I absolutely love. So once you've defined some of these parts, how do you to yourself first communicate that? Because everything starts with the self. As we think, we create. As we believe, so it is done. One thing that has been very helpful for me recently is listening to subliminals. There's a million of subliminals on YouTube, and I really want to shout out this creator, Natija Cave, because she's the one who put me onto it. She's here on YouTube. She does readings, tarot readings. And it's something that I found. I was recently sick. I had like a week, 10 days where I was just not necessarily in bed, but I was at home resting, and I was playing subliminals the entire time, and I could feel things shifting inside of me in my self-concept. Like I said, your self-concept is what starts the self-realization. How you see yourself, how you determine what is real for you and what is possible for you, is what's going to determine what literally is possible in your reality. Example. That's why I said realization. So I would suggest subliminals. I would suggest affirmations. I would suggest meditations that help you rework beliefs. I would suggest working with a coach who can help you rework your mindset so that you align with your most true self. I would suggest working with a coach who can support you in reworking the way you talk to yourself. And that's actually something that I support my clients with as well. When we start working, I have a 6-month program called Speak from the Soul, which is all about getting your core message as a change maker, cycle breaker. Like, what am I here to do? Who am I here to be? I know, for example, I'm here to challenge people to be more authentic. That's just the essence I carry. The way I walk, the way I move, the way I speak encourages authenticity in people. No matter if I'm applying it to coaching, to singing, to designing, to drawing, to whatever it is that I do. So I help my clients, first of all, from a mindset place, determine what are you here to do? And then how can we reinforce that mindset? How can we reinforce that concept so that you are continuously creating that in your life? So you want to consider, just getting to the point of this part, you want to consider, how do I talk to myself to reinforce the most authentic version of myself? How do I talk to my family to put boundaries? Family meaning friends, intimate people, people that are close to you. It could even be co-workers, to put the boundaries around myself that that reinforce how I want to show up in the world. And if I do want to be on a bigger stage, if I do want to be broadcasting here on YouTube, for example, or on a stage as a singer or as a poet or as a writer, what are the ways that I can absolutely be clear in who I am and what I represent? Because that's a vibration and the energy that I want to put out into the world. And with that, again, looking for videos or tools on how to tell stories is going to be valuable. In fact, I have a short mini course. It was a webinar series that I did, a 3-part webinar series called Story to Stage, and it just scratches the surface on how you can start translating your personal story into a stage-worthy speech for panels, for conferences, for podcasts. I'm going to put a link below. If you want, you can buy that. It's a pay what you want offer, so you can pay, I think, as low as 50 cents or $500, whatever it is you want to pay. And that might help you just get some ideas about how you can start creating, this self-concept, how you can start translating that to how you communicate to other people, and how you can also start translating that to how you communicate to the world as large. If you have any questions, I think I'm going to pause right here because I'm feeling like it's a good place to close. If you have any questions for me, please leave them in the comments. I am intentionally trying to post a little bit more on YouTube because I found that my favorite creators, I connect with them mostly through YouTube. I have felt that I wanted to be in many different places, and right now I'm choosing to focus on YouTube. So if you have any questions and you'd like me to create a video about that, anything related to communication, to building inner confidence, authenticity, to public speaking, please feel free to put your questions in the comments or send me a DM, whatever it is. I'm here for you. I really want to re-emphasize that authenticity is not just about being the most brash, controversial person in the world. I don't start out trying to be controversial. And in fact, personally, I don't experience myself as controversial. I experience myself as quite normal, quite frankly. My reality is what's normal to me. Authenticity is finding your normal, it's finding your home base, it's finding your home frequency. And being able to maintain that frequency, even when there are challenges in relationships, even when there are challenges in life, even when there are challenges in your own mindset, is something that is extremely valuable for creating the life that you want. We're not just out here trying to be authentic to be authentic. We're out here trying to be authentic to make sure that the life we're creating is aligned in a way that we find joy, that we find peace, that we find happiness, that we find whatever it is we're looking for. So, I'm Sharice La-Vonne. As I said, I'm a confidence, communication, and public speaking coach. You can connect with me at any of the links down below. And let me know, what does authenticity mean for you? And has that shifted recently? Or has that shifted by virtue of watching this video? I'd love to hear from you. Hasta luego.